So by way of introduction, my name is Karwowski. I'm the CEO and founder of Obviously. We are an influencer marketing agency. We're actually the largest female-owned, founded influencer marketing agency in the United States. So really great we're here today talking about women in marketing and leadership. And I'll let you introduce yourself, Anisha.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Anisha Raghavan, and CMO of No7 Beauty Company at Walgreens Boots Alliance. And just a little context on what that means, because it confuses everyone. If you obviously know Walgreens, and Boots is a big retailer out in the UK, so Walgreens and Boots merged back in 2015. And on the Boots side of the business, there's been this CPG beauty company for 90 years, and it's a portfolio of beauty brands that are iconic in the UK, number one in their categories, and just getting their start here in North America. So have really launched only over the last several years and growing fast in the US. So I joined 2 years ago as CMO and sit on the North America leadership team as well as the global marketing leadership team. And I'm really focused on expansion in North America.
Awesome. And I heard that you had probably one of the more stressful journeys to our conference.
Here?
Today. Yeah, if you want to.
I got a ticket. So it was not for speeding. I was not moving. I was sitting in traffic, and the cop behind me, I guess, out of boredom, decided to run my plates, and I still have California plates, even though I live in Jersey now. I moved this summer. I did have New Jersey plates. They were just in my car, not on my car. And he gave me a ticket anyway, so.
It's the most overachieving cop ever.
Right?
So that's brutal. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Make it up to you.
I made it here, though. That's the important thing.
That's great. So tell me a little bit more about No7 Beauty and just what's the brand
What we're
about?
doing?
Yeah, what are you guys up to?
Yeah, so like I said, we're really focused on expansion, and that's because, in the UK, like I said, while we're iconic there, it's really saturated, that market for us. So No7 is our flagship brand. It's known for clinical skincare and cosmetics. It has a 40% share in the UK, and the next nearest competitor is 4 times smaller. So really, for the company as a whole, international expansion is the growth vector. And in North America, for us, we've really been focused on 3 things. One is expansion in terms of distribution and brands. So for the last few years, we already existed at Target, obviously at Walgreens, where we're quite big. And in the last couple of years, we've expanded to our brands to Walmart, Kroger, Kohl's, and then we're launching some new brands over the next couple of years. So No7 being the flagship brand, we have Soap & Glory, which if you know the brand Bliss, it's the same founder. So Soap & Glory has this fun, quirky personality, really products cute. Like Sexy Mother Pucker. And then we've got Liz Earle, Botanics, Sleek, so a number of brands that we're now kind of really growing. So expansion kind of from a distribution and brand standpoint is one focus. Digital acceleration is another focus for us. And really, we have a huge advantage as a CPG player in terms of data. Because we're owned by retailers, we have access to those databases. So, Walgreens' database is 100 million people. That's almost the size of Amazon Prime. And I get to tap into that and use that transactional data for everything from consumer insights to media buying. So the last couple of years have really been focused on implementing the MarTech and training our teams to be able to leverage that. And for some of our KPIs, we've seen quadruple since we did that. And then the third thing is storytelling the brands. Like most of these brands are not well known in the US. No7 has 35% awareness. So how do I really punch above my weight, because my biggest competitors have way bigger budgets than I do, and act like a challenger brand and tell that story in a way that resonates and is differentiated in a category, frankly, that is incredibly competitive. And there's just in January alone, in Target alone, 40 new beauty brands launched, and that's just one retailer, 1 month. So the pace of innovation and competition is unlike almost any category, and that's what makes it challenging, but also what makes it fun.
Yeah, Jared Leto just launched a skincare line like today. So
I mean,
care to comment? No.
Anyone can launch a skincare line now. No credentials needed.
So No7 is, 100-year-old brand. How do you keep it fresh, keep it relevant, also with the added wrinkle that in the US it is relatively a newcomer.
Yeah, so we know who we are and what we stand for. And it's really two things. One is pioneering around products that are incredibly accessible given the quality that they are. So our products go through rigorous clinical testing. We have an immense amount of research and science that go into them. But the price points are fairly accessible, right? Mass products, $30, $40 price range. And our founder, Florence Boot, had that vision, again, almost 90 years ago now, where at that time, beauty products were really only for the wealthy, and she brought the beauty kind of cadence to Boots at that time, which was a chemist shop. And so we're still doing that today. So for example, when we benchmark our products against even prestige brands, even brands costing $1,000, we tend to perform at least at parity, if not better. And we position our products that way. One of our best sellers is called Line Correcting Booster Serum, and someone in the audience is telling me they use it. And the positioning is around cancel the clinic, and 80% of the women that trialed these products for us said that they would delay Botox. So that's one way where we're still upholding the vision and the heritage of the brand, but doing it in a modern way that's relevant to today's consumer. I mean, people in their 20s are getting Botox now all over the country. And then the second piece of what we really stand for is female empowerment, and specifically Florence always was about giving women access when they didn't otherwise have it, or helping them through challenges. So back, decades ago, she was ensuring that she would pay for the education for her employees and their kids in times of war, or she put women in pants in her ads when, obviously at that time women weren't depicted that way. And this was the 1930s, like 20 years before the Good Housekeeping article about how to be a good housewife came out, right? So she was always really empowering from a female standpoint, and we still stand for that today. So last year we launched Unstoppable Together here in the U.S., which was an initiative. It's our platform around our mission, and at that time, the She Session was going on. So because of COVID, women were leaving the workforce at 4 times the rate of men, and largely because, the burden of childcare is still on women and schools were shutting down. So we launched this program in support of the She Session, worked with the Female Quotient, an amazing partner, and ended up helping 10,000 women back on their journey to the workforce. So those are just a couple of examples of where we take our heritage, but we find kind of the today way, to the modern way to execute.
Awesome. Yeah, that's such great examples. And then what about you personally as a CMO? Like, how did you find your way to the beauty space and to marketing within the beauty space?
So, I mean, I could market toilet paper. Like, I'm super loyal to Charmin. As a marketer, I worked on, Babs and I worked together at Unilever. I worked on Axe and sat in frat houses for focus groups, so it's not that I'm wedded to beauty. I just happen to have stayed in it for a long time. And I got my introduction to beauty when I was at Unilever, working on brands like Dove, launching simple skincare for the company. But I will say I haven't left for so long because, first of all, it's really dynamic. I mean, no 2 years are the same. It's an incredibly competitive, dynamic industry. But also, there are countless stories like this, but probably about 4 years ago, I launched a teen acne line, and we were interviewing teens that had acne and, just kind of pulling testimonial footage out of that. And there was a 16-year-old girl who told me a story about how bullied she was because of her acne, and how just the weekend before we were shooting, her prom date canceled on her day of because she had an acne breakout. And like, I'm feeling myself getting emotional. I mean, I was like bawling, Yeah. And so just the idea that I could work on a product that helped build a girl's confidence in that way, like it had completely cleared up, the products had completely cleared up her acne, is just, I mean, that's what keeps me going. And we hear these stories. People write into us, people talk to our beauty consultants and tell stories. And it's just, it's what gets me up at night, every morning, I mean.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then I think to your point that the beauty industry is just so dynamic and so innovative. I know for my company, like we work with every category, and beauty is always really on the forefront. They're always experimenting, especially in marketing. Like, hey, how do we do things new and differently? How do you really stay up to date? How do you make sure that you're really on top of things in terms of all the changes and potential experiments that are happening in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, the CMO role today, or even a marketer's role today, is completely undefined. We're expected to be trend spotters, we're expected to be data gurus and digital marketers and brand storytellers and revenue drivers. And, and that's because of the pace of change over the last 10 years from a technology standpoint, and over the last 2 years from a COVID standpoint and consumer behavior shifts. And so just the role of marketing is very undefined from one company to another. And so part of, I think, success for a marketer and staying up to date and all that kind of stuff is really defining what it means in your company and being super aligned with your stakeholders about what does success mean. There's a crazy stat, like 80% of CEOs are dissatisfied with their CMOs. And on the flip side, with CMOs, it's 95% of them list revenue as one of their key metrics, but only 5% of them feel set up to do so. So one of the things that I always try to do is just stay really aligned with my boss, who's the CEO, about what are we trying to do from a marketing standpoint? Are we aligned on KPIs? Are we aligned on the definition of success? And then revisiting that every year because it can change. And so along with that, at one point it might be about growing brand awareness, and it's okay if we don't see revenue from a particular program. And then I try to keep up with what are the latest technological ways to reach a consumer very efficiently and get really high reach, or what are some breakthrough ways that I can cut through the clutter from an activation standpoint. And then I'd say the other piece of keeping up, of course I read a lot of the trade books and things like that, but is having a lot of variety in my career has enabled me to think really broadly. So I've been in CPG companies and I've been in direct-to-consumer companies. So I know how to speak the language of brand position and brand equity, but also I know the performance media language. I've been in hyper-growth companies and I've been in turnarounds and big companies, small companies, et cetera. So when it comes to thinking about either the business or the marketing plans, I think I can look at it from multiple angles, having experienced so many different types of roles within marketing. And then, I'm always drawing inspiration from the outside. I'm always looking at categories outside of my own, going to conferences like this, things like that to stay up to speed.
Awesome. And are there any trends that you're seeing in sort of the evolution of the marketing space with regards to that change?
Yeah, I mean, one trend is just that it's super undefined, and but I think trends in terms of marketing is just there's always a shift because of technology, right? So there's always a new technology that's come out, a new social platform that's come out, and I think it's very tempting to just jump on the bandwagon, but you have to stay true to your brand and your audience and really assess whether it makes sense. And then I think another trend that's really relevant to us and to the beauty industry right now is this shift from thinking about influencer marketing to creators. And I am a huge believer in having other people talk about my brands rather than my brand talking about my brand. And so, those that understand the difference, an influencer is about you have a following that you can influence, but a creator is a craft. And they can really create for your brand and story tell for your brand in a way that just comes off more authentically than branded content, in this day and age. So that's another trend where I think there will come a point in time where a marketer is no longer telling the story of their brand, or shouldn't be. The large share of brand storytelling will be in other people's hands, and then you just have to think about how to set up the guardrails to allow for that to happen, in a way that's okay with your sort of brand guidelines, but still authentically and not kind of holding people in too much. So much more about this than even I do in the influencer space, but that's the shift. That's one of the trends we're kind of thinking about, is creators versus influencers.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would say now a majority of our work happens in a video format, which is huge, and that you're working with people who are just so good at understanding what's going to resonate well on TikTok or Reels or YouTube Shorts. So I think that makes a ton of sense. And also, the brands just need a lot of that content too, because they really can't keep up with the amount of TikTok content that No7 can create compared to working with, a dozen creators.
I'm fascinated by how people create this content. Like, I have dabbled in TikTok. I'm by no means a creator, but it's just so fun. Like, I've been forced by, children in my life, teens in my life, to create TikToks, and it's super fun. And there was a time when I just started the job where we were selling out of a couple of our products. We couldn't figure out why. There was nothing wrong at the warehouse.
Check TikTok.
It was TikTok. Yeah, I think we were talking about this back then. So it was a video it was a piece of content on TikTok that had gone viral, and we just discovered it.
I'm actually just thinking I'm going to do like a day in the life TikTok, and I didn't take a video of this, so we're going to have to take a video later.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, thanks. And then I think your role is really impressive, and you're impressive. Do you have any advice for maybe any of the women here who are really thinking about getting into the C-suite, or, oh, hey, man, how do I actually achieve that? How do I get into that type of a role? Love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's that could be a whole session in and of itself, but I think first and foremost, when I mentor people, we talk about the imposter syndrome and how to overcome that, how to overcome the fears. Like, just trust me, you belong at the table. You belong in the next role, whether that's a promotion to C-suite or something along the way. And I think mentally getting yourself there is a big part of the battle. And for me, like, when I first became a CMO, I wasn't looking for a CMO role. I was actually looking to move my career more into the tech space because I was living in San Francisco, as my plates would inform you of. And I got a call for a CMO role, and I was kind of looking to make a lateral move because I just assumed if I was switching industries, I need to go lateral. I got a call for a CMO role. I got another call for a CMO role. It was one of those moments on, the LinkedIn algorithms put you to the top of some sort of search, and then you get all these inbounds. And that's what started me thinking, like, oh, okay, I think I am ready for a CMO role, But there's all these stats about, like, women will try to meet every single qualification on a job description before they apply. And no offense to the men in the room, but they might not even meet half of them and they'll apply, So women will edit themselves in their heads before they make a comment in a conference room. And so I would just say, figure out how to mentally get yourself out of that space, and you belong at the table. And for me, a lot of that has been mentorship. I have incredible mentors. They've all happened organically. Most of them are prior bosses, but there are great programs out there. There's something called Connect for Women, which was started by a good friend of mine, Jen De Silva. It's a great mentorship program. Adweek has an Adweek executive mentorship program that pairs mid-level marketers with CMOs. So that's one piece of advice. And then I'd say another is just keep in mind, really shitty experiences can actually really drive future success and your confidence. So I cry at work, like, probably more than I should as a CMO. Like, my boss at Walgreens has seen me cry, I think, 4 or 5 times in 2 years and doesn't know what to do with me. But are they
British too? Are they no?
Yeah, well, then they really don't know what to do with you. But the first time I cried at work it was my first company out of college, and I had a boss who screamed at me through a computer, and luckily it was my second rotation at the company, and my first boss was incredible, and so I would, like, run back down to that floor and cry to her and be like, what do I do, But truly, like, it was like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger on steroids, because it taught me so much. It taught me resilience. It taught me how to approach a situation like that and be, set limits and be like, you can't talk to me that way. It taught me how to not, what kind of leader I want to be and what kind of leader I don't want to be. And when it wasn't in that moment, but whether it was a year later or 2 years later, and I looked back and I was like, wow, I got through that. That's a confidence builder, So whether you are laid off or you have a shitty boss like I did, or whatever the situation is, just it's really hard to do in the moment, but try to look at those situations as an opportunity to build confidence and to learn something. And it is part of your journey to the C-suite, because it makes a big impact, and you remember those things later on.
I know, I hate the term imposter syndrome. I'm like, everyone feels insecure sometimes. You just have to keep going.
Totally.
You're just as smart as everyone else.
I go back to my family and in times where I feel insecure in some way, because the people that love you, first of all, they'll tell you kind of, they'll boost you up and everything and give you confidence, but they'll also tell you where you legit have something to work on, So my people are my people, and I go back to them all the time.
And so you mentioned a little bit about potentially going into tech or a tech role within another company. Are there any sort of unexpected moves along you had a few bad bosses on a few rotations at different places, but were there any unexpected moves that made people be like, oh, whoa, you did that and then you became CMO?
Well, my first unexpected move was I got laid off before I ever started my career. So I graduated
That happened to me
college.
too.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. There's
Look at us
like a
now.
club.
Yeah.
There's a club. I mean, by the time you get to the C-suite, I'd be surprised if you haven't been laid off at some point in the world of business. But I graduated college in 2001. It was the economy was already tanking, and then 9/11 happened. So the company that I was signed up to work for rescinded all offers over the summer before we even started. But I took that as a lesson, because I had signed up to be an analyst at a big company, and really my passion was marketing and advertising. But marketing and advertising hired on an as-need basis, and I felt the pressure of signing an offer by December of my senior year, because everybody was signing an offer. And so I learned real quick how to network, and I pounded the pavement. And a month after 9/11, got my job in advertising at Gray Worldwide. And so that was kind of the first unexpected thing in my career, but luckily I was, young enough to shake it off pretty quickly. And then years later, when I was at Unilever, I spent, over 6 years at Unilever and loved it. Like, I chose Unilever straight out of business school, because at the time, the company was getting a lot of accolades for what they called new media back then, but social media, digital media, things like the Dove Real Beauty campaign had just launched. And I worked on Dove, I worked on Axe, I launched Simple for the company, which is a brand new brand, and loved my time there. But by the time I'd been there about 6 years, I really wanted to learn more about e-commerce. I wanted to build those performance media skills. And when I graduated business school in 2008, digital was just barely a thing. And fast forward 5 or 6 years later, you really needed that skill set as a marketer. So I left in order to take a role in prestige skincare that was a company that was very e-commerce driven, and then subsequently had multiple roles in more direct-to-consumer companies, and that's what really built my skill on the flip side of marketing. So I already had sort of the brand management experience, brand equity, running a P&L from my Unilever days, and PepsiCo as well. But I learned things like MarTech and how to work with a tech team, and CAC versus LTV ratio and those sort of things from working in these D2C companies. So that move was, I had people telling me like, what are you thinking leaving Unilever? And nobody had heard of the company that I was joining, which was Strivectin, a prestige skincare brand. But it ended up being one of the best moves, because that combination of CPG and D2C has propelled my career multiple times over.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything maybe surprising that anyone who isn't a CMO or in your role we would find like really surprising about your either your day-to-day or just the role overall?
So what would you say if I told you I don't think my success has anything to do with whether I'm driving growth for the company or building a strong marketing plan? And I'll tell you why. Because by the time you get to the C-suite, honestly, like, having the functional skills is a given. I think everybody at that level has the chops to be a good marketer, or most people anyway. And really, even though, when my boss and I sit down and write goals for the next fiscal, it always has revenue on there. It always has market share on there. But honestly, I think the success is more driven by, are you able to inspire an organization to follow you? Can you, inspire confidence and hope in future growth? Can you resolve conflicts? it's more those people skills, those softer skills that I think sets apart someone who's really strong and not so strong when you get to that level. And so that's one thing that I don't think we talk about enough. As you're kind of rising up the levels, there's not great training, there's not great mentoring on some of those softer skills. And if you don't kind of go out and try to grow those capabilities yourselves, we're not setting people up to be good at that. So I think that's one thing that if I were to go back in time, I'd get coaching on a lot earlier.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, this has been so great. I'd love to open it up to any questions. Anyone have any questions for Anisha? Okay, we're actually not.
We're being told we're out of time.
Yeah, we're getting the help. But thank you so much. This is really
Thank
fantastic.
you. Yeah, nice chatting with you.